Hello everybody. So it is 8 in the morning and we'll be doing a forecast video update for the region as there is still a slight risk for severe weather guided by damaging winds and also an elevated risk for tornadoes, which I will go into. So first off, this is what our outlook looks like. We have a huge slight risk with parts of our western area and a marginal risk. Slight risk 2 out of 5. Risk of severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center, meaning scattered severe thunderstorms possible in either cells or lines. Damaging winds are the main threat. Let me just turn that off. But yeah, damaging winds are the main threat with a 15% chance of damaging winds storm generated. And over here, there's a 5% chance. So this is why we have a slight risk. Part of why we have a slight risk. It's a damaging wind risk. However, over the past 12 hours, there has been a new growing concerning threat, and that is your tornado threat. So we have the 2% almost extends to all of our region, including our lake counties. Along the lake, you're in a 2% chance. However, over here, I'm going to try to name out cities, Akron, New Franklin, Canton, New Philadelphia, Chardon, Jefferson, Niles, Kingsman, Borden, Youngstown, Alliance, Worcester, East Palestine, and into Pennsylvania. There is a 5% chance of tornadoes with a hatched area. Now, if you've been following the Storm Prediction Center, you know that usually a hatched risk before in the old methodology meant that there was a chance for significant tornadoes, EF2 or greater. But you had to have at least a 10% chance of tornadoes to achieve that hatch risk. But there is new conditional intensity group. If you look at the top right, you see tornado conditional intensity group 1. So it ranges from 1 to 3. 1. So for 1, you can actually have a 2% and a 5% of conditional intensity group 1, which means EF2 plus. So this area is hatched for EF2 plus, which is a strong, significant tornado. Now there's other levels. There's 2, which is EF3 or greater, and then there's 4, EF4 or greater. That's when you get that. Those are reserved for your high-end days, your moderate risk days, your high-risk days. But anyways, nonetheless, a lot of our region is under a 5% chance hatch, SEG1, of tornadoes, and a very small 2% chance hatched. So what does that mean? So for the 5% hatch, so before we actually go into this SEG, we need to talk about the actual tornado risks on their own. So a 2% chance means a couple tornadoes possible, low-end threat, conditional threat. 5% chance means that a few tornadoes possible. It's up there a little bit now, still a little bit on the lower end, but it's up there. It's definitely a risk. Now with the conditional tornado group, the conditional intensity group, the CIG, we call it. Since there is a CIG1, which means everything in this hatched stippled area means whatever tornado can form and sustain could be an EF2 or greater. And it's mainly reserved for the 5%. There is some areas in a 2%, but I think it's mainly reserved for the 5%. Nonetheless, so if you're in this 5% or even a 2% SIG, think of it as this. A few tornadoes possible, especially if any cell can become discrete alone. And then whatever tornado can touch down and form and sustain does have the potential, it's in the environment, for an EF2 or greater. That's what that means. Now, it does not mean your house is going to get hit by an EF2. No, it does not. a tornado can also be a bit more weaker since we are expecting a wind risk, which means a bit more line segments, which would overall have deplete your tornado risk a little bit. I think it would still support a 5% chance with embedded QLCS rotations. But anyways, that's your tornado risk. Just want to I wanted to get that out of the way, reiterate that. If you want to learn more about the new conditional intensity groups, go to the Storm Prediction Center. If you go on YouTube, Convective Chronicles, if you look up him, he did an awesome video with the SPC Chris Burrows and Evan Bentley about it. I would watch that video if you're confused. But yeah, I was a little bit shocked that we kind of got this 5% sig. I truly thought it would have been I truly thought it would be the wind that we get a sig over, but no. So you really have to stay weather aware in this region. But that is also not what we are just tracking. We're not just tracking lines of storms with 50 to 65 mile per hour wind gusts. We're not just tracking a few tornadoes that could potentially be EF2 significant strong. But we're also tracking a marginal risk for hail, a 5% chance of isolated hail reports damage of 1 inch. Hailstones of 1 inch, not damage, but hailstones of 1 inch. Specifically in those discrete cells that can fire. So when we have at least a 5% chance of every threat, wind, tornado, hail, that's an all hazard threat, and that is what supercells or developing line segments can cause. So it's definitely a justifiable slight risk from the Storm Prediction Center. Now let's actually go into what's happening now before we go into the models. So let's go to composite. So this is what's happening now. So here it is. Here's our big, bad mesoscale convective system. Right here. Now you might be saying, Charlie, it looks pretty weak over here, but pretty strong over here. Well, yes, that's what's expected. So we do expect potentially maybe you meet a little bit more weakening, or actually most likely just be the same intensity all the way in here. And then in that slight risk region, this is where we're watching for, that redevelopment. And in that redevelopment, your redevelopment area could be a huge area. But in that redevelopment area, we expect cells, multi-cells, to fire. And could potentially be in parts, line segments. Some can be in line segments, and some can be semi-discrete or discrete. And that's where your all hazard threat plays out. And we could potentially see, and so the current thinking is a line, like a whole mesoscale convective system, could form in this area, but more likely a really strong mesoscale convective system would probably be just south and east of our area. But even then, we could still have, prefrontal supercells fire. And even if we get that strong line right here in our region, we can still see prefrontal supercells fire. And that's where your all hazard threat is. And this line is where your wind threat is. So it's on its way. Let's turn on our warnings here. Let's see what's... So we do have some special weather statements, meaning we're getting hail up to 0.25 inches and 40 mile per hour gusts. So this thing is still pretty strong. It's actually severe near Paducah, Kentucky. We are watching that. I also want to point out there is a lot of clearing right now, and of course it has to be over our region. So you might be going outside, right? And you might say, oh, it's a beautiful day today. How the heck are we expecting tornadoes and severe weather? Well, the sad news, if you don't like severe weather, the sad news is the more the sun stays out, the more clear skies there are, the more the sun is out. And the more the sun is out with no breaks in the clouds, nothing blocking, no clouds blocking the ground from the sun. This will allow for the sun to cause surface heating in the day. And that surface heating brings up your temperatures and it brings up your instability. And that instability is that really main factor that goes into storms. So we've had this clear slot for quite some time. We had this clear slot for quite some time over here and into Pennsylvania. We have some cells popping off in Pennsylvania. That is going east. That says a lot about the Pennsylvania risk. However, we are with this mesoscale convective system line. We do have some cloud cover out in front of it, some overshooting cloud cover. That will progress into our region. So that's one thing you can look at. But you can see there are some breaks, and these are pretty transient, almost looks like. If we look at your infrared imagery. So they are kind of, so the more colors you see, if you look at the top, the more colors you see, the more tall those clouds are, and the more the sun gets blocked, because the more thicker the cloud, the more taller and thicker the clouds are. So you can see there is some, marginal thickness to these clouds as it goes up, but there's initially some breaks. But once again, as these first, I don't know why I keep getting the drawing tool away, but as these first form, once we get this won't be a huge holder backer from destabilization, since you can see there it's not that thick of clouds, it's not that tall, it's just overshooting with some breaks in it. But we still will have to see it. I still think this is, I still think we are currently destabilizing as I'm speaking right now. And now, finally, let me turn off warnings here. We will be going into the future radar. I'm not going to use the 12Z8RRR. That kind of well, I will use it for one reason. I'm actually going to use the RRFSA06Z. Now, if you know we call it the Rufus model because it's a supercell printer, you might be asking me, Charlie, why in the world are you showing the RRFS? It's probably one of the most inaccurate models. Well, I think it has a pretty good ceiling and potentially what we are expecting risk. And I'll explain. And I will show the 12Z8RRR for potentially our floor. So this is around right now, and it's not that bad. It's a little bit weaker than this, but once again, I always say, whenever the RRFS shows something like this intense, always take it a little bit more weaker. So if you apply that, then this kind of, it kind of is a bit accurate. Maybe not that well formed. Maybe not that much cells, maybe not. But it is also nailing the convection right now in Pennsylvania. That's a really good thing. And look at this. So as we get near 12 p.m., this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm talking about. So overall area where that slight risk is, we are expecting redevelopment. Redevelopment as multi-cells are little line segments you can kind of make out here. And those cells and the line segments, most likely the cells, will pose that all hazard threat. That's where your tornado risk comes in. That's where your wind risk comes in with the line segments. And also not even just the line segments. And this is also where hail risk comes in to play. Now, as we go in time, you can kind of see how this becomes what I was talking about earlier. This model kind of forms it into a bit more of a mature, organized line. And the most uncertainty is Does this maturity happen over here, or over here, or over here? That's where your uncertainty is. Because there is a chance where the slight risk starts, we could have an organizing line over here. So that's what we need to see. I think it's a nowcasting thing. I don't think models are going to be that helpful since there still is a lot of discrepancies within the models. I think we're just going to have to watch it. We're going to have to watch meso analysis. How much do we destabilize? How much wind shear there is? How current are the storms strong right now? Then after that, it kind of weakens. So that's the RFS. Now the 12Z HRRR. Let's talk about it. What does it show? We will see. Oh, so yeah, a little bit of a teaser. So the HRRR for right now is, yeah, it's all right. It's definitely got the weaker intensity. It has that. It looks like it is convecting some rain showers a bit to west. So this actually is not true. There actually is a bit more clearing over here. So take that in mind. But you can see, so 1 p.m., what do you notice? So you can see that there is, most of your redevelopment, is over here, which does include parts of our region. But most of your redevelopment is over here and not over here. This is what we call lake cooling, I think is what's happening here. I think this area in northern Ohio is kind of being affected by the lake in this model. I don't know how true, once again, I think that's your floor, to be honest, because the Storm Prediction Center for the past 3 days has been confident in the slight risk for, this area, and it's been uptrending. So I don't know how much I believe that. We'll have to see. It's definitely the floor of this run. So it's definitely not impossible, but it's the floor. And once again, we're currently destabilizing this region. So it makes this even more unlikely that the northern regions do not get too much. That makes it even more unlikely. Now, as we go on this mod, I just want to see. And it does form that mature QLCS, that MCS, sorry. That line, I should say. It does form that more mature line over here, which actually, that is a pretty good possibility. So you do have to take the 12ZH triple R, and at least in the back of your head, because it does show this, which we know is a possibility already, a probability even. It also does. This is also something that we have to maybe watch for the northern, like the lake counties for our region. So the cold front is going to pass, and some models do hold a little bit more instability. But once again, because of lake cooling, I don't know how true that is, but it does form. It at least tries. I know yesterday showed this, but it at least tries to show some random lightning convection. So I think your cold front will try to convect, but I think it's just ultimately going to turn into rain showers. So, yeah. So that's really that. So once again, let's just recap. Slight risk of severe weather. Scattered severe storms possible with 50 to 65 mile per hour wind gusts, either in cells or line segments or huge line. Tornado risk is definitely non-negligible. In that 5% chance where that stippled region is a hatched risk. A few tornadoes possible. Some of those could be strong. EF2 or greater. And isolated hail of 1 inch possible in that region. Okay, stay weather aware. If it comes to where we need more updates, I will do more updates. Thank you so much.